Her heart was beating faster than the music in the club. Every light flashing across the room seemed to remind her of him. Belly couldn't focus on the crowd, on her friends, or on the loud beats that filled the air. No matter what she tried, her thoughts kept circling back to Conrad. Every smile, every laugh, every memory of him was impossible to ignore. Tonight, in the middle of the club, surrounded by strangers and music, Conrad was all she could think about. The club was alive. The neon lights flickered in bright pinks, blues, and purples, bouncing off the walls and the people dancing around. Music thumped in the background, heavy and fast, vibrating through the floor. Drinks clinked, laughter echoed, and conversations tried to compete with the beat. But all of it seemed distant to Belly. She moved through the crowd, but her mind wasn't here. Her steps felt automatic, her smile practiced, but her thoughts were far away, locked on him, Conrad. She remembered the last time she had seen him, how his eyes seemed to look straight through her, how a simple glance made her heart skip. And now, even in the chaos of the club, she couldn't shake it. Every time someone bumped into her or tried to get her attention, it felt like the world had melted away, leaving only him. She leaned against the bar for a moment, pretending to check her phone, but she wasn't texting anyone. Her fingers traced the rim of her glass without noticing the cold condensation. Her mind was replaying the way Conrad laughed last summer, the way he teased her, the way he made her feel like she mattered more than anyone else in the world. The music was louder now, and the lights strobed faster, but instead of enjoying it, Belly felt trapped in her own head. Every heartbeat echoed in her ears, matching the rhythm of the music. But unlike the crowd around her, her energy wasn't coming from the music. It was coming from him. Her friends waved at her, calling her over, but she barely moved. She nodded, forced a smile, and laughed at the right moments, but her eyes wandered, scanning the crowd. Not seeing him made her chest tighten. Seeing someone who looked even remotely like him made her stomach flip. She tried to focus on the music, tried to lose herself in the lights and movement. But every song seemed to remind her of a memory they had shared. Even the beat of the drum sounded like his heartbeat next to hers. And she shivered without understanding why. The DJ switched songs, and a slower melody began to play. People around her swayed and danced, but Belly felt frozen. She closed her eyes for a second, imagining that he was standing right there in front of her. She could feel his presence, even though she knew he wasn't there. The memory of last summer, the late-night talks, the sandy beaches, the stolen glances made her lips part slightly in a quiet sigh. She wasn't aware of the crowd pressing closer, the bodies moving rhythmically, or the smoke machine fog curling around the room. Her entire world had shrunk to one person. One name: Conrad. A familiar laugh echoed somewhere behind her, and her stomach lurched, thinking it might be him. But when she turned quickly, it was just a stranger, someone she didn't know. Her heart sank and then raced again, a confusing mix of hope and disappointment. She tried to tell herself to focus on the night, to enjoy the party, to forget him for just one evening. But every time she told herself that, a memory popped into her head. The way he looked at her when no one else was watching, the way his voice sounded when he called her name, the way her chest felt like it might burst whenever he was near. She felt almost invisible in the club, lost in the crowd yet painfully aware of her own thoughts. Her friends pulled her to war at the dance floor, laughing and shouting over the music. She forced herself to move with them, trying to sync her steps with the beat, but it was useless. Every spin, every step, every movement brought her back to him in her mind. She imagined him leaning against the bar, watching her, a small, knowing smile playing on his lips. Her cheeks flushed just thinking about it, and she wished she could tell him. Wished she could reach through the noise and lights and grab his hand, even if only for a second. The club around her blurred. Faces melted into colors, and the lights became streaks across her vision. Her focus narrowed until everything outside her mind disappeared. For Belly, the club wasn't a place full of music, and dancing it was a place full of memories, full of Conrad. She couldn't stop thinking of him. She couldn't escape the pull of her own heart. And as the bass thumped harder and the lights flickered brighter, she realized one painful truth. No matter how loud the music was, no matter how many people surrounded her, Conrad was all she could hear, all she could see, all she could feel. The lights of the club blurred together. turning the room into a swirl of colors and movement, but Belly barely noticed. Her mind was miles away, replaying every moment she had shared with Conrad. She tried to remind herself to focus, to enjoy the night, to laugh with her friends, but it was impossible. Every laugh from someone across the room, every brush of a stranger's arm, every beat of the music seemed to pull her deeper into thoughts of him. It wasn't just attraction, it was something heavier, something that made her chest ache and her heart pound in ways she couldn't control. She leaned back against the wall, taking a breath she didn't realize she had been holding. Her fingers tapped nervously on the edge of the table. Her friends danced around her, carefree and oblivious, and she felt a pang of longing. She wished she could escape into the music like they did, to let herself feel the freedom of the night. But no matter how hard she tried, every song reminded her of him. She remembered the way his hands fit perfectly in hers, the way his smile could light up even the dullest days, the way he made her feel safe and seen, even when no one else understood her. A new song started. Soft and melodic, a song she and Conrad had laughed about last summer. The memory hit her like a wave, and she closed her eyes for a moment. She could almost hear his voice, low and teasing, making her laugh in the warmth of the summer sun. She could almost feel the brush of his hand against hers as they ran across the beach, chasing the waves and daring each other to jump higher. Her heart twisted painfully with longing. She hated that she couldn't control it, that her thoughts kept circling back to him no matter how hard she tried. She opened her eyes and tried to look around, to ground herself in the present, but her gaze kept slipping back to the crowd, searching for a glimpse of him. The club felt huge, loud, and overwhelming, yet at the same time, completely empty without him. People were laughing, flirting, and moving with the rhythm of the music, but none of it mattered. To her, the only thing that mattered was Conrad's presence. His smile, the way he made her heart race, even when he wasn't around. Her friends noticed her distraction. One of them nudged her playfully, asking if she was okay. She forced a smile, laughed softly, and nodded, but her eyes betrayed her. She wasn't okay. Her thoughts were a storm, a constant push and pull between wanting to enjoy the night and the irresistible pull of memory. Every little thing, the way the lights reflected on the dance floor, the shimmer of someone's dress, the beat of the bass brought back a memory, a feeling, a reminder of him. She thought about the last conversation they had, how easily they had fallen back into familiarity, how effortlessly he had made her laugh. She remembered the way he looked at her and the warmth of his hand when it brushed against hers. The memory was vivid, real enough that her chest ached. She wanted to stop thinking about him, but it was impossible. He was everywhere in her mind, a constant presence she couldn't escape. Even the music, which should have been a distraction, only amplified her longing. Every beat felt like a countdown, a reminder that he wasn't there, a reminder that she couldn't reach him. She wished she could tell herself to focus, to let the night take over, but her heart refused to listen. The club became a blur of lights and faces, all fading into the background, except for him, Conrad. Her breath quickened, and she felt a strange mix of anxiety and longing. Part of her wanted to run into the crowd and lose herself, to let the music sweep her away. But another part of her wanted to stop time, to be in the memory with him, to feel that connection again. She realized then that no matter what she did, no matter how loud the music got or how many people surrounded her, her thoughts would always find their way back to him. Her heart had already chosen, and it was impossible to ignore. Even standing in the middle of a crowded, lively club surrounded by laughter and motion, Belly felt a strange solitude. She was with her friends, yet completely alone in her mind, trapped in memories of Conrad. The warmth of last summer, the way he had looked at her, the soft teasing of his voice, it all consumed her. She realized that thinking about him wasn't a choice. It was her heart's way of reminding her that some connections are impossible to forget. No matter how much time passes or how many distractions exist, her friends tried again to pull her toward the dance floor, shouting over the music, but she barely reacted. Her attention was fixed elsewhere, drifting between reality and memory, between longing and hope. She felt the pulse of the music in her chest, a rhythm that should have kept her moving, but she was frozen in thought. Every beat was a reminder of him. Every light flash seemed to mimic the way his eyes had caught hers in the sun. She realized with a pang that her heart wasn't in the club, was lost in the memory of Conrad. And she couldn't find a way to bring it back. As Belly stood against the wall, her eyes scanning the crowd, her mind slipped further away. The pounding music faded into the background, replaced by the gentle sounds of summer, the soft crash of waves, the distant laughter of friends, and the warm sun on her skin. She could feel it all as if she were back on the beach with him. Back in the moments that had made last summer unforgettable. She remembered the way Conrad had laughed that night by the pier. Leaning against the railing, the golden sunlight glinting off his hair. It was a laugh that made her heart lift and her cheeks warm. A laugh that had been hers, and hers alone to hear. The memory was so vivid that her lips curved into a small, almost imperceptible smile, even as the club around her remained chaotic. She could feel the wind on her face again, hear the distant call of seagulls, and smell the salt in the air. It was a memory that refused to fade, one that wrapped around her heart and pulled her in, making everything else, everything in the present feel distant and hollow. Another memory hit her, sudden and sharp. The night they had stayed out late, walking through the empty streets with only the moon and the glow of streetlights guiding them. Conrad had reached for her hand without a word, and she had felt an electric thrill at the touch. Her fingers tingled as she remembered it. Even now, standing in the crowded club, her heart raced with the remembered sensation, and for a moment, she could almost feel his hand in hers again, warm and reassuring. The crowd around her faded, becoming a blur of movement and color, leaving only him in sharp focus. She thought about the night they had shared secrets under the stars. Lying on the soft sand with nothing but the sky above them, he had told her things he never said to anyone else, and she had listened, mesmerized by the sound of his voice and the way he looked at her, as if she were the only person in the world. Belly could still see the curve of his smile, the intensity in his eyes, the way he had made her feel safe and alive at the same time. The memory made her chest ache, a mixture of longing, happiness, and pain, in the club. A stranger brushed past her shoulder, and for a split second, her mind played a cruel trick. She imagined it was him, imagined that he had somehow appeared out of nowhere, come to find her in the chaos of the night. Her heart leaped and then sank as reality hit. It wasn't him. The club was still loud, still filled with strangers, still moving around her, but her thoughts refused to let him go. She tried to shake it off, tried to focus on her friends. But every laugh, every flash of light, every beat of the bass brought him back. Conrad was everywhere in her mind. It's impossible to ignore. She remembered the way he had once pulled her aside during a summer party, leading her to the quiet edge of the beach where the music of the waves was the only sound. He had looked at her then in a way that made her knees weak. A mixture of mischief, affection, and something she couldn't name. She could almost feel the sand beneath her feet again, the night sky above, and the warmth of his gaze that had made her feel seen like never before. It was a memory that clung to her, refusing to let her escape it. Even as the neon lights of the club danced in front of her eyes, every memory seemed to crash into her at once. The late-night conversations, the quiet moments of shared laughter, the stolen glances across crowded rooms. Her mind played them like a film, each scene more vivid than the last. She could hear his voice, smell the faint scent of summer air mixed with him, feel the weight of the moments they had shared, and with every memory her heart ached with the longing for him. It was as if, no matter where she went, no matter how many people surrounded her, no matter how loud the music, Conrad was always there, living in her mind, in her heart, and in the very pulse of her being. Belly's friends laughed nearby, trying to pull her into the rhythm of the night, but she felt far away, trapped in the echo of memories that were more real to her than the present moment. Every glance across the dance floor, every beat of the music, every flashing light reminded her of him. She could almost see him standing somewhere in the crowd, even though she knew it was impossible. The longing twisted inside her, bittersweet and undeniable. For a brief moment, she wished she could step out of the club, step back in time, and relive those nights with him. Feel his hand in hers, hear his laugh again, and forget the present entirely. But she couldn't. All she could do was stand there, lost in memory, heart aching, unable to focus on anything but him. Conrad was more than a thought. He was a presence, an unshakable force in her mind. And no matter what she tried, she couldn't escape it. The bass of the music thumped harder now, each beat reverberating through the floor and into Belly's chest. But it did nothing to pull her away from her thoughts. The club was alive with movement, hands waving in the air, bodies swaying in time with the rhythm. Laughter and chatter mixing with the DJ's booming tracks, but for Belly, it felt like a world she couldn't reach. She moved along with her friends, but her steps were sluggish, half-hearted, guided more by obligation than by enjoyment. Every flicker of the lights, every flash across the dance floor, seemed to tease her, reminding her that she was somewhere she didn't fully belong, not because the club was too crowded, but because her mind was elsewhere. She glanced at her friends, laughing and carefree, spinning and twirling in the light. They were completely immersed in the night, completely present. And that made her feel both envious and guilty. She wanted to join them, wanted to feel the music in her bones, wanted to let herself be free. But no matter how much she tried, Conrad's presence was everywhere in her mind, refusing to let go. She could see him in every flicker of light, hear his voice in the rhythm of the music, feel his touch in every brush of her hand against the cool surface of the bar. Reality and memory blurred until the two were indistinguishable. A sudden movement in the crowd caught her eye. Her heart leaped. For a second, she thought she had seen him, just a glimpse of tall, familiar posture, a flash of dark hair, but when she blinked, it was gone. The club swallowed the figure instantly, leaving her chest tight with both hope and disappointment. She pressed a hand to her chest, trying to calm the sudden rush of emotion, but it only made the longing worse. The world around her carried on, oblivious to the storm inside her, and she felt a pang of isolation even in the middle of so many people. The DJ switched tracks, and a new song filled the room, a fast, vibrant beat meant to pull everyone onto the dance floor. Her friends grabbed her, tugging at her arm, laughing and shouting over the music. Belly forced a smile, followed along, trying to match the steps of the dancers, but it felt hollow. Every movement reminded her of the nights she had danced with Conrad, the way he had twirled her around under the moonlight, or leaned in close to whisper something that made her laugh uncontrollably. She was here, but she wasn't here. Her body moved, but her mind was somewhere else entirely, lost in memories that were more vivid than the present. Even the drinks in her hand didn't ground her. The cold glass felt distant, the liquid meaningless. She sipped, pretending to savor the taste, but it didn't register. Every sip only reminded her of the time she had shared a drink with him, laughing over inside jokes, sharing secrets in moments that felt private even in public. The noise, the chaos, the lights, all of it faded into the background whenever her mind wandered back to him. Her friends noticed her distraction again. They nudged her, teasing her, asking what she was thinking about. But she brushed it off with a quick laugh and a shake of her head. She couldn't tell them it was him, couldn't admit that Conrad was everywhere in her mind. It felt too intense, too consuming, almost dangerous. She feared that if she let herself say it out loud, she might admit to herself everything she was feeling, the longing, the ache, the unshakable pull of his memory, the flashing lights of the club reflected in her eyes. But they weren't enough to pull her from her daydreams. Her gaze kept drifting, scanning the crowd for someone who wasn't there. Every smile from a stranger, every brush of someone's hand, every laugh that sounded even remotely familiar made her heart skip. She felt a strange mixture of excitement and despair, hope and disappointment all at once. It was as if her mind was trying to trick her into seeing him, teasing her with shadows and fleeting shapes that weren't real. Belly tried to focus on the music, on the laughter of her friends, on the beat that was supposed to carry her away, but nothing worked. The club was a cage of lights, sounds, and bodies, and yet her mind felt like it had slipped entirely out of it, wandering through memories of Conrad. The walls, the ceiling, the flashing strobes, they all became background noise to the vivid images of his smile, his voice, the warmth of his presence. She realized with a painful clarity that she couldn't escape him. Even here, even now, in the middle of the chaos, as the song reached its peak. The crowd around her surged, and she felt herself pulled along with it. Physically present, but emotionally distant. Her friends laughed, dancing, moving in rhythm with the music, but her thoughts remained tethered to him. Every beat, every flash of light, every movement around her only reminded her that he wasn't here. He was missing from this night, missing from her reality. And the ache of that absence pressed on her chest with every passing second. Her heart pounded in time with the bass. Her breath quickened, and a familiar ache settled deep inside her. She tried to convince herself to enjoy the night, to let the club, the music, and her friends fill the emptiness. But it was useless. Conrad was everywhere she looked, everywhere she thought, impossible to ignore. And in that moment, amidst the flashing lights and pounding music, Belly realized one undeniable truth. No matter how loud the world around her was, no matter how many people surrounded her, Conrad would always be the only thing she could see. The music shifted again, slower now, almost teasing, and the lights dimmed slightly in a rhythm that seemed to echo Belly's heartbeat. She moved through the crowd, feeling pulled in every direction. Yet her eyes kept scanning the room, searching for someone she wasn't sure was even there. And then something. A shadow near the bar. A familiar posture, the tilt of a head, the way someone leaned slightly to the side. Her heart jumped, hope surging through her chest. Could it be him? She froze for a moment, unsure whether to step forward or stay hidden in the swirl of people. Every instinct screamed at her to look closer, to see if it really was Conrad, but the moment was fleeting. When she blinked, the shadow was gone, swallowed by the moving crowd. Her chest tightened, a strange combination of disappointment and relief washing over her. She wanted it to be him. She wanted to see him, even for a second. But even imagining it made her heart race uncontrollably. The music pounded louder again, and Belly tried to focus on something tangible to drink in her hand. A laugh from her friends, but every sight and sound seemed to pull her back to him. Every tall figure in the crowd, every flash of dark hair, every familiar gesture sent her thoughts spinning. She found herself staring into the distance, convinced she could see him just beyond the lights. Waiting, watching, even knowing it was probably just her imagination didn't make it any easier. Her mind was a trap, replaying the memory of him, blending it with the possibility of his presence right there in the club. A stranger bumped into her from behind, and she stumbled slightly, her heart still pounding from the shadow she had seen. Her friends laughed, brushing it off, but Belly barely registered it. Her mind had gone somewhere else entirely. The memory of Conrad's touch, the warmth of his hand, the way he had smiled at her last summer, it all mixed with the fleeting glimpse she thought she saw. She felt a thrill of hope mixed with frustration. Was it real, or was her mind playing tricks on her again? She leaned slightly against the wall, trying to steady herself, trying to breathe and ground herself in the present. But it was impossible. Even the lights that pulsed in time with the music seemed to mirror her racing thoughts. She could almost feel his presence in the shifting shadows in the corner of her eye, in the way the crowd seemed to move as if part of a hidden pattern that only she could see. The more she tried to convince herself to focus on the night, the more the image of him refused to leave her mind. Every song, every beat, every movement of the crowd felt like a message, like a signal meant only for her. She could almost imagine him stepping out from the shadows, walking toward her with that familiar, confident stride, a small, teasing smile playing on his lips. Her chest tightened at the thought, and she swallowed hard, her pulse matching the rhythm of the music. But the reality was still there, harsh and unyielding. He wasn't here, not yet. Maybe not tonight. Belly's friends tried once more to pull her onto the dance floor. They laughed, joking, trying to shake her from her daze. She laughed along, smiled, even twirled briefly, but her mind wasn't in it. Every glance at the crowd made her heart leap and then sink. Every movement reminded her of Conrad, how he moved, how he carried himself, the way he made everything seem effortless. The club was alive, but for her, it was almost irrelevant. All that mattered was the possibility that he might be there, somewhere, just out of sight. Watching her without her knowing, The flashing lights created fleeting illusions, and Belly's imagination ran wild. A figure moving through the crowd, a hand brushing a coat to anything, could be him. She felt a mix of excitement, fear, and longing all at once. Her heart raced faster than the music. She could barely breathe without thinking about what it would mean if he really were there. Was she ready to face him? To see him again after everything? The thought made her both eager and terrified, even as the crowd pressed closer. Even as the music roared and the lights strobed faster, Belly felt the undeniable pull of his memory. The magnetic force of his presence even imagined. She realized then that it didn't matter if he was really there or not. Her heart had already found him, and nothing in the club, nothing in the world around her, could pull him out of her mind. Every shadow, every flicker, every movement kept her on edge, waiting, hoping, longing, and in that moment, she knew the night would be impossible to forget. Whether he appeared or not, the club pulsed with energy. Lights flashing in vibrant bursts, music vibrating through every corner of the room. Yet for Belly, it felt like time had slowed. Every sound, every movement seemed distant, muffled, except for the constant, insistent pull of her own heartbeat. It was racing, skipping, trying to match the rhythm of her thoughts of him, Conrad. She scanned the crowd again, eyes wide, searching, hoping, even though she tried not to. The moment her gaze fell on a familiar shape, her breath caught. For a split second, she thought she saw him. A dark silhouette, tall and unmistakably familiar, moving across the dance floor. Her heart leapt, a wild surge of hope flooding through her chest. The world narrowed down to that single figure. Everything else, the flashing lights, the pulsing music, the laughing crowd faded into the background. She could feel the adrenaline pumping, her hands trembling slightly, the flutter in her stomach almost unbearable. Could it really be him? She stepped forward, trying to get closer, weaving through the crowd, her movements urgent but cautious. Each step made her pulse race faster. Her friends called her name, laughed, tugged at her arm, but she barely noticed. Her eyes were locked on the figure, on the possibility that he was really there. Every fleeting movement, every glance in that direction, sent her emotions spinning. The closer she thought she got, the more fragile hope felt, like it could shatter at any moment, and then he vanished. Just like that. The figure she had been following disappeared into the crowd, leaving nothing but shadows and light. Her chest ached, a mix of disappointment and longing, twisting together painfully. She paused, trying to steady herself, pressing a hand to her chest, willing herself to breathe. Her heart wouldn't slow. Her mind was spinning, replaying every moment, every hope, every memory of him. The club was loud, chaotic, alive, but she felt suspended, floating in a space between memory and reality, past and present. She tried to remind herself it could have been anyone, just a stranger shaped by imagination into Conrad's image, but her heart refused to listen. Every detail, the way the person moved, the posture, the shadow felt just like him. The memory of his voice, his smile, the way he had looked at her in the sun, made the vision feel real. She almost wanted to reach out, to push through the crowd, to find him. Even if she was chasing a mirage, Belly's friends noticed her pause, nudging her again, laughing, calling her to dance, to move with them. She forced a smile, lifted her hands in the air, spun briefly to match the beat. But her mind stayed tethered to that shadow, that fleeting image. Every beat of the music, every flicker of the strobe lights, every cheer from the crowd felt like it was punctuated by the memory of him, by the possibility that he was somewhere just out of sight, watching. Her fingers tapped nervously against her phone in her pocket, a small attempt to ground herself. She inhaled and exhaled slowly, trying to convince herself to enjoy the night, to let the lights and music fill her instead of her own thoughts. But every fiber of her being screamed that it was impossible. He was everywhere in her mind, haunting every movement, every heartbeat, every thought. The fleeting shadow she had seen made it even more unbearable. A tease that tightened her chest and made her pulse pound faster than the bass. A sudden laugh echoed near her. A familiar tone that made her spin quickly, heart leaping again. It wasn't him. But the brief jolt reminded her just how alive the memory of him was, how impossible it was to escape. She pressed her hand to her mouth, feeling the mixture of excitement, anxiety, and longing swirl together. Her chest felt tight. Her breath came in short, uneven gasps. And yet she couldn't tear her eyes away from the spot where she thought he had been. Every corner of the club seemed alive with possibility. Every figure in the crowd, every flicker of light, every shift in the shadows could be him. More could remind her of him. The tension built inside her, a roller coaster of hope and disappointment. A longing so intense it made her feel both vulnerable and alive. She realized that she was no longer here in the club, at least not fully. Her mind had taken her somewhere else entirely, a place where Conrad existed, a place where her heart refused to let him go. And as the music roared around her, her friends dancing obliviously nearby, Belly felt a shiver of anticipation. She might have missed him this time, she told herself,